And let's move on into our next topic, and it's a great one because we're welcoming in one of our beloved patrons, Sam, into the podcast to talk about the Bears. And before I welcome Sam in, if you want to be a patron and join a Superfans podcast or any podcast on MVP, or even be in the Discord with our great Patreon family, and basically be in the conversation in our Discord group
24/7.
24/7 access to everybody. Patreon.com/mostvaluable podcast. Anything you can do. $1 tier gets you access to the Discord. $5 gets you, you can basically suggest topics to the podcast. And then the $10 tier, you get to join the podcast talking about what you would like to talk about. And Sam, first off, I got to ask, how you doing tonight as we are recording this on a beautiful Thursday evening?
Just not a fan of the storm humidity the past day, but just showered, so I'm feeling super refreshed.
Yeah, these storms are, I hate whenever it rains because as a fat guy, the humidity just sticks to me, and I sweat, and I'm a sweater, so it's just uber bad for myself. But we're going to get in talking about Da Bears entering the bye week. We are now 3-2 coming into our bye week. This last game in London, not the greatest of games, losing to the Oakland Raiders. I know when Sean and I talked about it, I picked the Bears to win. Sean picked the Bears to win. It was not a good outcome for the Bears, so I want to start there with going into the bye. We're going to talk about where the team stands and everything, like kind of basically how Sam said, we're going to vent here in the bye week. Sam, I want to start with you. What are your immediate thoughts after the Bears lost 24-21 to the Oakland Raiders in London?
I basically called that totally happening exactly the way it went down, because I knew as soon as Chase Daniel started in place for Mitch after he busted his shoulder, ironically, against your Vikes again, I knew, okay, so Daniel's going to win the first game, and it's going to be a good showing. Then he'll be just good enough to make us narrowly lost the second one. So yet another repeat of Chase Daniel's overall backup quality, being a quarterback. 500, literally.
Yeah, I'm not too shocked that Chase Daniel obviously threw the 2 interceptions and obviously threw the interception to lose them the game. However, I still feel after all of that, even the subpar play of Chase Daniel isn't what I'm taking away. And I don't think Chase Daniel's the reason that they lost. Definitely played a factor, but I think the biggest thing that I'm taking away is the lack of discipline this team has when it comes to the offensive line and their inability to block and their inability not to hold. Anthony Miller's inability to take a taunting penalty after the Allen Robinson's second touchdown, and then getting a penalty on the ensuing kickoff to pretty much give them 20 yards of gain on penalties alone on that one play. There is a ton of mistakes when it comes to lack of discipline on this team. Penalties have been absolute killers. They're extending drives. Defensively for the teams, Oakland got a couple breaks when it came to that. They also got Richie Incognito being a complete bonehead, but nothing else is new on that front, hurting their drives as well. But overall, I mean, Chase Daniel is what Chase Daniel expects, but what I took away from that is Chase Daniel could still have a bad game, and the Bears can be in a spot to win it. And the Bears did not play a good game in London, yet they still were driving to possibly win that game. So overall, I'm a little with you, Sam. I'm not, super upset where we are, week 5 right now with the Bears bye week. I'm just mainly upset with the lack of discipline, but that's something that can be fixed.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar boat. I think it's more of a disappointment as far as that structure around the team and the dumb mistakes that we keep making. And I wonder, we joked about the lack of fall off from a defensive production standpoint, losing out on Vic Fangio. But I wonder if part of that also leads into the he was a whole lot more of a general, or I don't want to say general, but he seemed to have more of a presence around that defense, and I feel like it might be a slight difference or a relaxed room right now.
Well, I'm just gonna take that, and I think that it's mainly with Nagy, because it's not just the defensive side; it's the entire team. And that's why I don't really think it's on Pagano or the change to Fangio. I think overall, I'm not upset with the fact that Fangio's gone. I mean, we know that Fangio is an extremely good defensive coordinator, but I don't think he's on levels of Bill Belichick where it's, Bill Belichick and then every other head coach and it's not even close. I think Vic Fangio is definitely an elite defensive coordinator, but Chuck Pagano showing that it wasn't all Vic Fangio last year. That that this defense has been very good. Penalties have been absolutely brutal for them. But outside of that, you still look at this team and they're able to stop teams. They're still able to pressure teams outside of that Oakland game. But even then, they were still able to force big turnovers. And I think overall the biggest concerns aren't with Chuck Pagano or the way that this team, the defense is playing. It's mainly with the way the locker room is, and I do think it does have a loose feel, but I don't think it's mainly on Chuck Pagano. I think it's just on Matt Nagy setting that tone in the locker room because it does seem to be team wide.
Yeah, for me, the thing that I'm looking at is everything because Sam, you brought up Chase Daniel, and for me, everything I'm looking at is Mitch Trubisky, where everyone's like, they released Tyler Bray. He could be back. Mitch could be back after the bye. Tribune even saying that Nagy even said, yeah, he's probably, I'm not going to say for sure, won't rule it out, but leaning towards maybe Mitch being back. The question I want to throw out, because you brought the quarterback situation up, Sam, is because of the loss to the Raiders, does that kind of rush Mitch back? Where I'm not saying Mitch wouldn't be ready week 7 against the Saints, but if the Bears beat the Raiders, does it maybe say, well, you know what, you're not 100%, we don't have to rush it back. Chase can go out there, but now losing to Oakland, and like you said, winning against Minnesota, losing against Oakland, are the Bears going to rush Mitch back? Because they need him out. I'll air quote it. Need him out there against the Saints more so than Chase Daniel. In your mind, Sam?
Totally, because that's just the thing. I mean, he's good enough to be a quality backup, but Mitch has just got, he's a lot younger. He's just got better arm strength. He can use some better vision, frankly, at times, but there are just a lot of stuff he can do as a QB right now that, frankly, that Chase isn't exactly up there since he's in his, mid-30s.
No, you're completely right.
And then I'll ask you guys this, and anyone can kind of take it, is, are you worried coming out of the bye? Because I'm even just going to bring up the next 5 games.
Yeah, drop our schedule in there.
The Saints, the Chargers, both of those are at home. Then you've got the Eagles on the road, Lions at home on Dave's birthday. Happy early birthday, Dave. And then the Rams in Los Angeles. And here's what I'm kind of thinking. I'll give you my thoughts before we'll go to one of you, probably Sean. Here's the thing I'm thinking. Alvin Kamara, Eckler and Gordon, Kerryon Johnson, Jordan Howard, Todd Gurley. The one thing I mentioned when we did the Raider preview was if Josh Jacobs has a good game, it's going to be bad news Bears.
The reason why he had a good game, though, was because of the presence that the offensive line for the Raiders have. And the thing that the Chargers don't have, the thing that the Saints do not have, the thing that the Rams do not have, and I forget the other team that you threw in there.
The Lions and Eagles.
Yeah, maybe the Eagles do. But the Lions do not. But the Eagles' offensive line has been bad, too. The only team that they've had success running the ball against is the Packers, but everyone has. They don't have the offensive line that the Raiders do. And I severely underestimated the offensive line for the Oakland Raiders. And
you underestimated the Raiders in total, because I remember when they scored 14, I almost tweeted out, at Schwarbo, I almost said, so do you think the Raiders can score 10 points against the Bears?
No, I was absolutely wrong. I underestimated this entire team and mainly the offensive line, but I don't think any other team has this offensive line that's going to be this dominant. I do think the Bears also were hurt by the fact that they were traveling over to London. I don't know if the Thursday trip was the smartest idea.
And they did travel late because of that.
Well, yeah.
The Raiders went over there right away.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, the Thursday travel day.
Yeah.
The Thursday travel day, I don't know if that's really the reason why, and I'm not going to doubt it because I don't know what it's like to do that trip. I've never gone to London. I've never played football, so I don't know how to combine those two. But Matt Nagy did say that through his prior experience, that was what worked best for him. So I don't blame him for doing that and him making that call. So overall, I don't know if that was a thing, but it definitely is possible that they were jet lagged and not 100%. So I'm not worried about the running backs. You could throw off any name out there. I still would favor the Bears to not allow a 100-yard rusher because you look at what they've done historically, and they've allowed 3 100-yard rushers in the past 2 seasons. So I don't think that I'm going
and
to be...
2 are in overtime.
Yeah, I'm not going to be too afraid of these 100-yard rushers or these running backs. I'm mainly going to be afraid of the Bears hurting themselves because that's what I've seen in the first 5 games.
Sam, I'll ask you, the next 5 that we listed off, how worried are you as a Bears fan? Are you worried at all? Are you super worried about the next 5 coming up? Saints, Chargers, Eagles, Lions, and Rams.
Well, this is a disturbing thing I'm sort of noticing from Nagy probably since, like, what was it? I think the latter stages of last season and the beginning of the first 5 this year. I think he's starting to he's trying to underestimate, like, supposedly very bad team matchups. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like Sunday with John Gruden. He's like, John Gruden's nothing but a freaking, like, clown. Because he, like, watched Hard Knocks and all the AB drama. So he's like, yeah, he's like totally has no idea what the hell he's doing. They were like 4-12 last year. It's like, this is going to be cakewalk. No, you don't. You respect every single opponent you are matching up every week, and you treat them like the legitimate threat that they could potentially be when you get on the field, and you do like a full 3 hours of football with them. The thing is, he underestimated like how dangerous the running backs were, and we just basically got bulldozed and just outcoached by John Gruden handedly. And he was super smug with his dub dancing, as we saw in the locker room.
Oh, absolutely. It was highlight of the season for him, probably. But, I mean, it's interesting that you bring it up because, I mean, it usually is a point of contest, like going into a bye week. The teams overlook that final game if it is against an opponent who, they should beat on paper. And I think that definitely plays a role into this because the Bears we've expected for the majority of this year to be defensively just stalwart and offensively good enough to win any game. And I think that could have played a role into it.
I'm wondering where the idea that they underestimated the Raiders are. I'm just genuinely curious where that's coming from because I didn't really get that vibe too much from that game. Sam, where were you kind of pulling that from? Like, what did you see specifically that you think that the Bears or Matt Nagy specifically was underestimating the Raiders?
No, because I was thinking more about this like after this the Raiders game ended, but I watched like highlights from that late San Francisco game right before, I think, it was like the 3rd game in December or whatever. I think we won that game still, but it was a lot closer than it should have been last year. It was like 14-9.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw like a lot of similar trends from him as far as like, it's like he just doesn't like, I don't know, he just doesn't have any urgency about treating like this as a legitimate opponent. So it's like he'll take his pedal off the gas a little bit and he'll just like let it sort of ride.
Do you think like play calling wise, he kind of reacted a little bit differently or didn't have the right answers to what the Raiders were throwing out there?
Yeah, basically. I mean, he was like a deer in headlights, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lack of adjustments, I guess, on the defensive end, but offensively, I felt like they were just kind of stale and vanilla, but you do have a backup quarterback. Do you think they could have relied more on different weapons?
I think the biggest thing, just to jump in here, I think defensively, I don't know how much of a say he truly has in what's going on there.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, he does trust Chuck Pagano. Obviously, Pagano does have his own experience as being the head coach of Indianapolis, so I do think he has faith in Pagano, and I don't think he's going to overstep any boundaries. It feels like Nagy is very much, we've always known that he's preached that BU mentality, so I really would find it odd if he is overstepping his boundaries and stepping over to the defensive side. I think that really the biggest thing was I think the Bears and the players themselves, I think we put too much emphasis on coaching in general. And I think the Bears themselves were just kind of not expecting the push that they were going to get from the Raiders. I don't think they were fully there. I don't think that they were fully ready to go that game. And you maybe you could say that it's on the coach to get them up, but I think physically they weren't there, and that's really not on the coach. Maybe you could again make the argument they should have flown out there earlier. That's very much a possibility, but I do think that this team was just getting out physical that whole entire game, and it's tough to make an in-game adjustment for that because you're not going to be doing strength training during the game. You're not able to rest up for that game. You have to do what you're able to do, and the fact that the Bears were 3 points behind and were driving to possibly tie that game up, or 4 points behind, I forget the score. I do think that Nagy was able to at least get his guys at least motivated coming out in the second half. We did see them punch them in the mouth. So I truly don't know if this can totally be blamed on Nagy's lack of adjustments. I think at least the first half has to be more on the players because they weren't disciplined, and I don't think they were ready to go. Maybe
it sounds like a locker room, and it stems from the top down usually in those cases.
But with that, I think it's again we've seen that physically they've been there pretty much every single game outside of the second half of Denver, but that was mainly because the offense couldn't keep the ball in their possession. Other than that, they seem pretty ready to go and pretty dominant. I think you could take in the factor of the London trip. Again,
so you want to we're going to toss the London game and say these next 5 games are critical to the Bears' season. Basically, we're facing potentially the best team in the NFC in the Saints.
Yeah.
And that's with their backup quarterback, right? Because Drew Brees won't be clear.
Drew Brees won't be back until he could be back the week after against Arizona. If not, it'll be 2 weeks after that.
I know he's throwing balls, so he could even be ahead of schedule.
They're aiming for if he plays Arizona after the Bears, that's early.
Okay.
Otherwise, it'll be after the bye.
But with that,
we're playing a top team. We're playing someone who has had playoff success after that.
Yeah,
it's just it's a daunting 5 games.
Without a doubt, the London game cannot be thrown out because if you miss the playoffs by a game, you're going to look back at that game being like, all right, that's the game that we could have been in the playoffs.
The Green Bay one as well. I mean,
whatever one you want to pick. But Green Bay, we knew that if Green Bay's a playoff team, you're going to look back and be like, okay, we should have beat the Raiders. That was a game that we're heavily favored to win, and you were and whatever. But I think that was something where we should have won that Raider game without a doubt, and I think. Again, if we miss it by 1 game, we're going to look back at that game. But the next 5 games are important, even if we won or lost this game, because these next 5 are against playoff opponents, and you're going to show your true strength out there. I am just, with the Nagy stuff, the biggest thing that I think you could blame him for is the offense, because the offense has looked extremely poor. And that's the one thing that penalties I think you can, because I don't think the culture there is 100% locked down and making sure these guys are tighten their shit up. And with offense, I don't think that the line's fully there. Nagy's going to have an interesting choice whether he wants to play Kyle Long or not. And the running game just hasn't been there for the past 2 years, and that's without the line being great like it was last year, or horrible like it has been this year. I do think that that's going to be on Matt Nagy's play calling and the way he's been scheming up games. So overall, from that Raider game, I just don't think the Bears were ready, and I think it's probably more 75-25, 75 blame going to the players, because you saw obviously in the second half they were ready to go physically. But with the offense and the play calling, that's on Nagy.
Well, I want to get the thing with the offense. I want to mention is the thing I think with the Bears that needs to change is the run game. Where I look at, Cohen's a guy who. He's more of an offensive weapon in my mind. He's going to be used more receiving than getting touches in the backfield. Montgomery is your guy. And for me, it's like he had a solid game, I'll say, against Minnesota, 21 carries, his third most yards that we've seen. Washington and Denver, he had over 60. But, the amount of carries he's getting is very fluctuated, where it's just the last 2, 21 against Minnesota, only 11 against the Raiders. And I look to Jordan Howard last year, and I get that David Montgomery's a rookie, and maybe that's played into it. But, with Jordan Howard, the carries, especially later in the year, were more consistent. And this is a league where I know that it's pass dominant. but you still can't be one-dimensional.
Just with that though, the Bears had a lead, so you're trying to milk clock, and that's probably, and they were down in that game against Oakland 17-0. So you do have to at least take the playing, the game factor itself, where the Bears were trying to milk clock, and that's why David Montgomery got a little bit more carries against Minnesota.
But at the same time, then should the Bears go to the run game earlier when they're not down late in the game? Like, there's times where maybe, and it goes into the offensive game plan. And Sam, that's what I want to ask you am I crazy for thinking that the Bears should probably run the ball a little bit more? And is this the key to fixing the offense, is running the ball more than relying on Mitch and his arm and the pass? Because I'm just bringing up Mitch because he's probably going to be back after the bye week 7 against the Saints. What are you thinking, Sam?
Well, I think one of our biggest offseason mistakes was sending Jordan Howard to Philly, for the love of God. I think we're finding out that, you know what, every team needs that bruising, battering ram running back who hounds the defense over the course of the game, and they're just going to wear them down so hard. They'll become so porous by the end. They'll just open up more lanes for your other guys, and you could just basically triple team them, and at least somebody is going to get a couple rushing touchdowns eventually. Because if my ideal offseason plan would have been we kept Jordan and Cohen together, and we drafted Montgomery. Could you imagine what a 3-headed running back monster that would have been?
Yeah, no, I agree with you because of the success we actually saw out of Tariq Cohen based off the work that Howard laid out. Howard was that battering ram. He was the one who softened up the defense.
The north-south, like the uphill runner.
Yep, and then that allowed Tariq Cohen to find those gaps to make those big plays happen, and that's something we haven't seen out of Tariq Cohen outside of that one kick return this season.
Just with that, and he was, and he had the touchdown against Minnesota too, where he was able to get into space in that first and goal. But you're right. I mean, it's been limited plays for Tariq Cohen. I don't know if I'm ready to be like we should have kept Jordan Howard though. And to your point, Ricky, the fact that the Bears weren't running the ball, or at least using Montgomery early and often. Their first drive, they threw it to it was a lateral pass to Cohen, so it was pretty much out of the flats. It was designed to get him into space. So that was more of, all right, it was kind of a run play, but just throwing the ball, doing that. And then they gave it to Montgomery. He got 1 yard. And then it was 3rd and 6. Not shocking they passed it. You're trying to get chunks on that play. And they threw it to Montgomery, and he made a great play on that spot. They picked up the first down. Then there was a penalty that pushed him to 1st and 15, so the Bears did pass it, but they converted it, 19-yard pass. And then 1st and 10, they went to Cohen on a pass, and then 2nd and 5, they ran the ball with Montgomery, but then Charles Lano got called for a hold. Then Daniel got sacked, and then they threw it to Daniel. But in that whole drive, out of the 7 plays, they went to Montgomery 3 times. So I think they were trying to get him into the mix. They were trying to run the ball, and when they did, and they got 3 yards and a yard. But there was offensive holding by Charles Leno. So I don't think they were able to really get a running game established because of the lack of ability for the Bears offensive line to seal blocks and to not seal blocks without committing penalties. And we saw Kyle Long get absolutely obliterated. And I think Matt Nagy does need to be a more creative play caller. I think he does need to put his guys in worse situations, because I feel like Chase Daniel holds onto the ball a little bit too long, and I feel like he needs to be able to get Chase back and make quicker decisions to get the ball out of his hands a little bit more, because this offensive line isn't that good. But to even counter that, I just don't know if he's got the quarterback to fully run the system, because we look at what, we talk about Mitch in high regard of being this athletic guy who's got a great arm and is a much more talented quarterback than Chase Daniel. But I'm looking at the plays that Chase Daniel's making, and, obviously he threw that horrible interception, 2 of them. You didn't see the middle linebacker, and then he obviously just totally misjudged what Miller was running on that last one and then overthrew him anyways. But to that point, I just don't think that he's got the right guys, because you've seen Allen Robinson get open on pretty much every single play. and he's not getting the ball on every single play. And I think a great quarterback would be able to force feed him. And Allen Robinson has been eating, and I feel like there's a ton of guys that have just been open, and Chase Daniel isn't able to get the ball out quick enough because of the offensive line, and he's not able to get it out quick enough because he's not seeing the ball, these reads that are open. And same with Mitch Trubisky. So overall, I don't think Matt Nagy's been doing a great play style, but I think you could blame every single person on every single facet of the offense, and you'd be fine doing so. The offensive line has been Swiss cheese at best. They've been very bad. The quarterbacks have not been quick enough in their reads when it comes to Daniels and have been forcing bad passes. Obviously, the 2 interceptions.
The passes Daniels does throw are the safe passes. He's throwing the safety blanket in a lot of the cases. Look at his passer rating. Understand that once he is completing.
There's been times. There's also been some
he
impressive
takes a couple,
ones.
But for the most part, he's working in the bread and butter. He's working easy throws.
That's what I want a backup quarterback to do. Where Mitch isn't really doing that, and he's been taking a little bit more shots down the field, but it just feels like those big plays that this offense is designed for haven't been opening up the way that Nagy wants to, and maybe that's just the way that Nagy's coaching this offense, and that's where the problem lies. And if you do want to blame Nagy for all the, for the lack of discipline, that's fine too. I think the only spot that you can't blame is the wide receivers. Tight ends have been horrible. The best one is the one that you just picked up in J.P. Holt so far, and he hasn't been lights out. And the running backs, like Sam said, Tariq Cohen hasn't been used great. David Montgomery hasn't really had the blocks to open up everything. Mike Davis has been pretty much atrocious. Chase Daniel, like we said, he's a backup quarterback at best, but why is he your guy? Why is he the highest paid backup quarterback at being an undrafted guy who hasn't shown talent at 31 years old? And the offensive line's been bad. And then you can look at the head coach, and you can look at all the offensive coaches as well, and they haven't been rock solid. So I just think that there could be blame put around all this offense. Sam, what were you going to say?
I want to propose like a nuclear trade option scenario here. So let's say in the
Ricky is
next
loving this, Sam.
No, we have to discuss this because I've been reading articles about it, and I'm like, you know what? This is a creative idea, but I think it really has to be discussed on a podcast, frankly. Depending, hypothetically, let's say Daniel goes down, too, with some godforsaken injury all of a sudden, too. Mitch does finally come back, but he's, continuously underwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the NFL deadline is the end of October, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, week 8.
Here's the thing. From what I've been reading with the rise of the rookie quarterback over in Jacksonville currently, they've more or less deemed Nick Foles to be extremely expendable, but the other thing I've been researching with their salary cap situation is they are going to be, way in the red as of next year. So his contract has just become an albatross that they're desperate to be moving sooner than later.
Yes. You are playing right into my hands,
Dave
Sam.
literally brought this up earlier this night.
I was hoping that this would come up.
Oh, God.
I was prepping for it. Nick Foles could absolutely walk in this door and be a better quarterback today than what we have in Mitch Trubisky. And I 100% think that Nick Foles is capable of getting this team to the playoffs, given that he is healthy and has the ability to come in week 8.
Nick.
I am all in on this, Sam.
Okay.
I don't know what we're trading for. I don't
No.
All right, Sam, go ahead.
Here's why I'm presenting this, though.
Yeah.
Our window of opportunity with everyone's current budget contracts are up by the end of the year. Too many people are up for huge-ass extensions.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Jackson. Cody just signed one. We have to replace so many other people.
Yeah.
We have a decent pool of draft picks right now. The figure is Jacksonville would actually take a lesser package from us, salary matching, of course, to get rid of Foles as quickly as possible.
Here's the thing that I'm going to disagree with. Next year, Foles is up for $15.1 million. There is a potential out after that, but there's a dead cap hit of that of $12.5 million. After that, he's got a 2020 option for $14.8, and then his last year of that contract is worth $20 million. Next year, there is already just a cap space of $14.6. So Nick Foles would eat up every single piece of that contract. If you think the only window for the Bears is this year, then maybe you go Nick Foles, but I don't know if he pushes you over the edge enough to be a Super Bowl winning team, and that's what he need to be to make this plan to hit. But I would rather not make that move, see what we have in Mitch, than go out and put $14 million into a Nick Foles who just got injured. We don't know his current health and possibly hurt our future Super Bowl potential as well. And here's the thing, too. We don't have a first-round draft pick because we got rid of that in the Mac trade. I'm not taking that back. I know Josh Jacobs just ran for over 100 yards on us, but I still would rather have Khalil Mack and his contract than Josh Jacobs. So I would really be opposed to that move. If the Bears did make that move, I think it would be extremely short-sighted. I still think there is a window beyond next year. Might not be with every single player in this defense, but Ryan Pace has been able to do everything but draft offensive players. He's been killing it when it comes to identifying defensive talent. So I honestly do think that this window can last longer than this year, and I think trading for Nick Foles would be a mistake.
Well, this leads into the final question that I was actually going to ask is, you say if the window is just this year, and the thing that I'm starting to think early on in the season is when it comes to the Bears, to quote the late, great Denny Green, did we kind of crown their asses? And after last season, it was an easier schedule for the Bears. No lies. This year, a little bit more difficult.
The most difficult schedule.
Exactly. Whereas we're seeing the 49ers, they're benefiting right now from an easy schedule. And they're 4-0. I mean, we don't know what next year's schedule is going to be or the year after. I'm going to have kind of a two-pronged question for going around the horn. We'll start with Sam. The first one is, what's your outlook for the rest of this season? Right now, 3-2. What's your outlook coming out of the bye, and especially these next 5 games? What's your record going to be? And do you think the Bears, should fans panic? Should we not? And even going forward, if this year is a year where, let's say, the Bears miss the playoffs in some way, does that cause panic for the future to where do the Bears have to make a move and go with like a Nick Foles over a Mitch Trubisky? Sam, I want to start with you before we go around the horn to end this topic.
To me, the definition of a successful season, given how ridiculous the schedule we were given, is 10-6 is a magical number. I would be totally happy with like a wild card bout, and if we're eliminated in that, so be it. That's all I want.
As long as it's not from a field goal miss, I will tolerate that answer.
No double doinks?
No doinks at all. No wide rights.
That's Tennessee's problem now. Cody Parkey's officially signed.
Yikes.
As we saw.
Ugh.
I feel sorry for Marcus Mariota.
I don't.
They're not making the playoffs, so it won't matter.
Yeah.
I would say at least. And what was the second part of that question, Ricky?
Just outlook for so if the Bears, like, let's say they do miss the playoffs because the schedule is tougher. Outlook for future. Do we have to get someone like Nick Foles, or do we stay the course? Mitch is the guy. This offense will work. It was just a bad year.
All right, or do we go for a rookie quarterback again?
Yeah, Sam. I don't want to overtake you, so you can answer that part now.
Well, it's like I sort of mentioned it on the offside with you guys a while ago. I do want to draft another quarterback, but this is purely just from multitude of team control issues, because Chase Daniel is not worth another $10 million for next year, and he's going to be like, 34 at least or something?
32, I think.
Yeah. So my thing is,
No, you're right. He's going to be 30. He's going to be 34, 33.
Yeah. So my thing is, get a more cost-effective control guy in the second round, because I know a couple of the better QBs are going to go in the top 32 team first round, but there's going to be some mid-tier guys who are going to fall down. The thing is, if you can find that hidden gem guy, like, for example, the guy I've been really liking as of late is the quarterback from LSU. Very underrated.
Joe Burrow.
Burrow. There's no S.
Burrow.
You Chicagoan.
He's from Chicago.
I didn't even know that. So
yeah, Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Ricky. Yeah. No, I was just making fun of Ricky because Ricky added his name is Joe Burrow, and then Ricky added an S, like every Chicagoan does, where they can't actually pronounce a last name to save their life.
It's not our job.
No, but I would draft like a backup quarterback sort of in the vein of Nick Foles in Philly originally. And I would actually give Mitch some competition in order to get a fire under his butt. So he can actually rise up to the challenge.
I mean, continue. Yeah.
If the other kid ends up overtaking him, well, maybe we found a franchise quarterback that way then. So Mitch becomes a backup. The thing is, that's up to his choice with his ego if he wants to stay or leave in that regard.
Yeah, I think one of the big prove-it moments would be in that situation is there's no excuse left for Mitch. He has all the physical talents, but if he doesn't have the right mind and understanding of the offense and the ability to think quickly on his feet and react, then maybe he's not cut out to be the guy. You can be given all the physical tools, but if it's what's above the shoulders that separates, the gifted athletes from the top-tier quarterbacks.
And once Bears fans figure that out, I've already told Sean last week, because every time I drive to work, there's a meatpacking place that is a Bears-related thing on their sign.
If I have to hear about this meatpacking place again.
Well, this week, since Mitch went down, the sign hasn't changed. It said, at this point, do we bring back Cutler?
Yikes.
I'm like, is that really where our mindset is? But, what you're going with, Chicago fans, if it's a thing of, if it's mental, like you're saying, and he's got the physical tools, once the fans turn on you, you're done. Once Chicago fans turn on you, it's really hard to get them to come back around face.
It's very true. And it's a sign of concern out of me, at least, that it seems like Mitch Trubisky regressed this year. Mm-hmm. So far, I know, very small sample size. Small sample, not even 5.
Not 3.
Small sample size, but still.
3 and 6 plays.
Yeah. I didn't even count the Minnesota one.
Oh, I know. No, it's being an ass.
Yeah, that's what we do around here. That's what we do. Point being, the offense was very complicated, so we had to dumb it down for him again, which this should be when we're putting the foot on the gas pedal and being like, we can really open things up in year 2, right? And we're like, nope. Roll it back. We're playing simple football out here. We paid for one of the best offensive minds in football to be our head coach, and we don't have a guy who can understand a playbook well enough to get success on the field. Mm-hmm. I think that is the biggest thing that needs to be determined this year. That's what has to happen in the next couple of weeks, is we need to figure out if Mitch Trubisky can move forward as a quarterback and grow, or if he's topped out because, look, he's an excellent athlete, but he's just lacking something when it comes to reading an offense and understanding how to play.
Yeah, to answer your question, Ricky, for my expectations for this year, I think it just relies strictly into the playoffs. I expect this team to make the playoffs, and or maybe not expect, but that's what the expectation should be. They should make the playoffs as the team that made the playoffs last year. Those were the expectations coming into the season, and I don't think we should change our mind. This is pretty much largely the same roster as it was last year. Mm-hmm. And Matt Nagy, yes, you got a harder schedule, but you should be able to scheme around that. You still have a very talented team and a very talented defense, and you should be able to win games. And here's the bright side. 5 games, you were in every single game. You were driving to possibly tie up that game in London, and you had multiple opportunities to score more than 3 points in that game against Green Bay. So I don't think it's gloom or doom time. I don't think it's time to fire anybody into the sun here, but it is a prove it year. Can Matt Nagy make sure
send him to the moon?
Shoot him to the moon. I don't think it's shoot him to the moon time. If Matt Nagy is able to rally this team back and you're able to become a playoff team, then I think that's absolutely great. My standing, and if they don't make the playoffs, it's going to be depending how bad it is. Hey, if you're going 9-7 and you miss by 1 game, or you go 10-6 and you barely miss out, I don't think that's, again, shoot 'em to the moon time. It's disappointing, but I think we could see where this team would be lacking. And I think you could also see that, hey, you did play the hardest schedule, and the Lions look pretty good. The Packers obviously look good. The Vikings, we beat them, obviously, and stomped them.
Yeah.
But they're not a bad team. They're not. They're
all 4 teams in the NFC North are actually very good teams.
At worst, they're average. Yeah. That's a very to find 4 average teams in a division is pretty rough. I don't think we have any great teams. I think the great team is the Patriots, shocker, in the NFL. I don't think any teams are up to that level where there is a dominant team. There's no dominant team.
If the Packers have their A game, like their A game, A+ game, they could be a great team because they've got a better defense this year. Aaron Rodgers.
But are they right now?
I mean, I've seen great games out of them.
Are they a great team right now?
No.
Would you?
No, because they're not consistent
Okay,
yet.
but-
As
but
soon
that's-
as they get consistent, then they go into great
and that's why
territory.
I can't call them a great team. I think they're a very good team and probably the best team in the NFC North right now. But I wouldn't say that the Bears would lose to them 10 times out of 10. I would honestly think that it's a very fair matchup each and every time going out. I don't think the Packers are great right now. They can be great without a doubt. But I think that the Bears can still make the playoffs. I think the expectation still should be that, and it's going to be depending on where this team lands. And then for at least the quarterback situation, I am going to be curious on if Ryan Pace does get the opportunity to draft another quarterback or the future franchise quarterback. If he doesn't take a quarterback in this year's draft, he will be extremely wrong in that idea. Chase Daniel's contract will be up. He will be an unrestricted free agent. I don't see a point in bringing him back. He was supposed to be that transition piece for 2 years to make sure that Mitch Trubisky was able to pick up the offense and be able to teach Mitch Trubisky how to be a quarterback. I think it was a very good idea, but now it's time to actually get some youth injected into this this franchise, possibly find someone who can be a future quarterback if Mitch isn't there, and also just give you time to have a guy that isn't going to cost you $6 million at the backup quarterback position, where you can have a guy on a cheaper rookie deal to help out the fact that you need to bring all these other players back and possibly sign extensions. So
Is it Fromm?
I don't care who it is, as long as it's a quarterback that's drafted. That's what I
Jalen
want.
Hurts.
Spend some capital. I would love Fromm. Spend some capital on a quarterback. If it's Nate Stanley, I would love it. I don't care which quarterback it is. I just want a quarterback to come out here. So I think that's what I would like to see in this draft this year. I don't think it's time to bring in Nick Foles or Eli Manning or any of that garbage. Let Mitch Trubisky at least finish out this year. We'll see where he is. Maybe he plays okay enough to finish out his 5th year. Maybe he plays great enough to get an extension. I'm not betting on that, and I would probably think that he plays fine enough to play out his final year of his contract. I don't think he's going to get an extension. I don't want him to get an extension as of the play that he's had right now, but I wouldn't be opposed to him playing up. But yeah, the last thing I would want is bringing in a guy that is going to cost a lot of money to be possibly a backup to Mitch Trubisky or whoever is brought in. I don't think there is that next level guy who could jump over Trubisky, and I don't think there is that guy that is going to be deservedly earning way too much money to be a backup quarterback, like a Nick Foles or like an Eli Manning.
I mean, I sort of answered mine already. So,
Okay.
Sam, what are your thoughts after hearing Sean's take?
Actually, I think I read a couple days ago we already gave a call to the Giants about Eli.
Yeah, that was a tweet, and that guy is full of shit. The guy who tweeted that guy spelled the word "have" wrong. He left the A out. It was HVE, and also the guy got fired because he's like a huge racist. So he was supposed to work for the Coyotes radio station out in Arizona, and he made like some horrible remarks back in the day, and they were like, "Yeah, this guy can't be on our station." The Phoenix Coyotes did. So yeah, that report was a no fly zone on that one. You were not the only one mistaken by that, though. I trust me. I've done some research into that.
It was just like a tweet from a racist ex-employee from that boony radio station that just blew up on Twitter for the past 3 days, and oh my lord, that is so hilarious to me.
Yeah,
so hilarious.
And I mean, to kind of put a bow on it, I'll just give my thoughts, and we'll end the segment of. To me, the next 5 games are the most important. And I look at it, the Bears are not going to win all 5. It's how many you can win. I think that I would love for the Bears to beat the Saints because my kiss of death, I need the Saints to lose games for them to not make the playoffs. Because,
I've never met anyone who roots against their picks.
No, I root against it because I've been wrong so many times that I just want it to keep going.
Just make better picks.
I mean...
there's that.
Right now, I might have a good pick because Teddy Two Gloves is trying to save the ship, but I don't think they go 5-0 in the next ones. It's, to me, the Lions game will be key, the Eagle game will be key, and then the Charger game. Other than that, Rams and Saints, I think are the 2 that I think the Bears lose. And if the Bears miss the playoffs, I think that the fan base in Chicago, I think Bears fans start to light that fire under Mitch a little bit because that's how Chicago fans are. We overreact to things. When you're not winning, get this bum out of town. And I think that we might hear the beginning of those guys come out of the woodwork like the roaches if the Bears don't make the playoffs. But Bears fans, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section. Sam, it was great having you on. Can't wait to have you on next month. Where a little tease might be talking about White Sox free agency. But let us know what you guys think down below. But that's going to do it for Super Fans. What, episode 7, I think we're at? No, this is just for the podcast.
Oh.
So how I'm going to do it is the Bears segment can just end like it ends. And then this will just be for the full podcast.
All right, cool.
But that's going to do it here for Super Fans. Want to thank you guys. Episode 7, I think this is. I've been putting episode numbers on them, so I think this is episode 7. Thank you guys. It's been a great journey for starting it.
Gotta thank Sam.
Gotta thank Sam for calling in. I almost thanked Jake, but that was the fast break
You
we did earlier.
It's super fun to talk Bears in any context, and the fact that we could talk with patrons, especially Sam,
Bears
is always a good
fans are
time.
going to be listening, and not just
absolutely.
random fans are like, "Why are you talking about the Bears so much?" Well, we like the fucking Bears.
And the cool thing too is Sam is a Bear fan, and that's the coolest thing. It's like, obviously, having people support us is super cool, but this whole podcast is about being super fans, and Sam is super loyal to the Bears and is always watching the Bears too. So it's super cool.
And the one thing I will say, didn't get to the Bulls tonight, like I mentioned earlier. We'll do a Rick and Johnny. We'll push that one to next week and definitely get to the Bulls. Got to actually get to the Sox this offseason. Cubs, if they hire their manager, it's going to be a lot of fun stuff for the rest of the winter. But make sure to check us out on patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. That's how you support us. You can also twitch.tv/Most Valuable Podcast. You got that Amazon Prime. Make sure to throw that free sub over to us. You can follow us on Twitter at Ricky Widmer, at Schwarbo, at Dave_don't_tweet, and at Most Valuable Pod. But thank you guys for checking out this episode of Superfans, and we'll be back with you next week.